This video is entirely for educational purposes to guide players on how to identify such activity in real duels. All footage gathered has been done so in a solo environment and does not represent any actual gameplay or duels, whether officially sanctioned or friendly. Special thanks to Farfa for being a massive inspiration and admittedly great cherry tree to pick out certain specific cheats from. In this video, learn to cheat, how to understand, spot, and prevent cheating in card games. I heavily recommend anyone watching this video to check out his video as well, which will be linked in the description as well, as without it, much of this video would not exist. With a lot of us left desperate to play Yu-Gi-Oh! In paper, Konami has rolled out remote duels, a way for Yu-Gi-Oh! Players to officially receive prize support and play with others through their local card store with the help of a webcam, a local OTS store's management, and a group of enthusiastic players. Despite its initial rollout being a little rough, many OTS stores are managing to host small yet consistent remote duel tournaments for fairly decent pricing. However, with such pricing and a lack of eyes to have players keep track of one another, it does allow for the opportunity for some players to cheat. In this video, I'm going to try to do my best to cover as many of the sleight of hands and cheats players do in order to scum wins and how you can identify it and prevent it from happening to you. Note that this video will be mainly focused on sleight of hand and more card-related mechanical cheating. This will not cover things like gameplay-related cheats, such as additional normal summons or setting monsters in the back row, but do keep those things in mind as you progress throughout this video. The first and most important thing is to keep all of your and your opponent's cards in plain view. Your main, side, extra, everything. It seems obvious, but sometimes just having things be a bit out of view can allow for some very easy cheating if you're not paying close attention to the camera at all times. I recommend having each player count out their extra and side deck at the beginning of the duel and to have all of their cards within view of the camera without being out of frame at all, for that can allow some sneaky off-camera stuff mid-game / during sighting. Above all else, keep your opponent's cards in clear view as well as your own. Now let's get into the more mechanical side of things, starting off with scoping. Scoping is where you'll have your cards within view and be able to see your cards as they're being shuffled. This is particularly useful as it allows for players to know where their cards are and they can stack power cards wherever they want, as well as keeping garnets or bricks out of their hand. Some telltale signs of this are cards being kept perpendicular to the table while being shuffled. If this is happening, ask your opponent to turn away when shuffling, or if they're out of frame and you can't reasonably trust that they will, ask them to cut their deck at a random number. Say, roll a dice, and ask them to cut to the sum of whatever number or numbers that you end up rolling. Another popular way of stacking the deck is the pile shuffle. Pile shuffling is done by prearranging your deck in such a way that you'll be extremely likely to open certain combinations of cards, see side deck cards with virtually every hand, essentially opening whatever you want about 90% of the time. You can see here that I'm doing it with very powerful unsearchable cards such as Rescue Rabbit and Researcher. A good indication of this is by them only pile shuffling and cut shuffling, simply taking chunks of cards out and moving it, which doesn't really make any real difference as it just reorders certain stack sections with another stack section. Just because a person is pile shuffling, however, does not mean that they are cheating, but just be on the lookout of how they shuffle their cards. A good way to prevent this is to ask them to riffle shuffle and to, again, cut to a random spot in their deck. Bottom drawing is a way for players to scope the bottom of their deck and deciding whether or not they want to add it to their hand. Combined with scoping or intentionally shuffling a power card or garnet to the bottom, this can be a very powerful tool for seeing or not seeing certain cards. You can see here that I'm pulling out a card from the bottom of my deck in a very swift motion and managing to open the Rescue Rabbit. Try to look at where your opponent draws from by their hand motions and where these cards come from. There are some other scenarios of bottom drawing, such as the clasping bottom draw, where players draw from the bottom and top at the same time when they set down their deck. If you ever see this happen, immediately stop and call a judge. Keep an eye on your opponent and their draws at all times. Ghost cards are cards that, well, come out of nowhere. They might get an additional ad off of a search, they might have a critical graveyard enabler already set up, and you just don't know how it got there because you weren't paying attention, they've already won the game, and you're going X2 after this local. Always keep an eye out of cards being hidden behind other cards, your opponent's hand coming in and out of frame, and any strange movements your opponent may be doing with their deck or cards off screen. Always keep track of cards in your opponent's hand and the actions that they've taken during the duel, and if you suspect they're hiding cards behind other ones, ask them to individually count them out. Lapping and matting, respectively, is to hide cards in your lap or underneath your mat. It is very easy to do this in real life if your opponent isn't paying attention, and is even easier to do so in remote duels, since you can't always see everything 100% of the times. That's just the reality of it. Again, keep a close eye on where your opponent is drawing their cards from and any strange movements or things being done in and out of frame, and especially during siding. For the more dexterous and advanced cheater, we have false cuts and shuffles. These are shuffles and cuts that look convincing, but ultimately don't do anything other than hand the advantage to the player. Sometimes, the players doing this could even stack entire hands or the outcomes of cards like Reasoning or Pot of Desires if they know what to do and if they want to, and it's very easy if you know what you're doing. Keep an eye on how your opponent shuffles their deck and handles their cards, and if you suspect anything, always be sure to ask your opponent to riffle shuffle and to cut to a random section of their deck of your choosing. If they try to reject this or say, "Oh, you're being too paranoid," call a judge. They're trying to cheat. Double drawing is one of the more common cheats you'll have pulled against you and is likely have been done against you already, and you just don't really know it yet. Double drawing includes drawing 2 cards from the top of their deck, and sometimes even 3. Nothing you can really do to stop your opponent from double drawing, but if you want to catch them in the act, you can ask them to either lay out their cards and to always ask for cards in their hand. Maining cards from the side deck, having additional side deck cards, having more cards in your side deck or extra than is legally allowed is obviously very against the rules, but it's quite easy to get away with through the webcam. Maining your side is obviously useful when you know what your opponent is on, such as swapping out your Veilers for dimensional shifters against shit all invoked. Keeping cards out of frame, or your opponent just having more cards in their side or extra deck than is normal, is something you should look out for. Again, just ask your opponent to count out their cards in their side and extra, and to look for any suspicious activity happening off frame. Finally is the pile swap. Pile swapping is by illicitly changing cards from different piles, such as the banish zone to hand, the graveyard to hand, the hand to the banish zone, anything like that. Remember to just look out for people trying to overlay their hands, or anything really, with other piles, and to keep cards in their proper zones, and you shouldn't really have any problem with any exchanges between the zones. So that's as many sleight of hand slash little cheats that I could come up with. Special thanks to Farfa again for letting me basically just steal half of his video. And hopefully you won't be cheated again or be cheated ever against. Let me know if there's anything that you feel I could have forgot, done better, and I'll see you guys next time. Thank you so much for watching.